Here we are. It is another day closer to college football season starting. Rob Browne here with you, along with Jimmy Hodge. Going to have a full show today. Mitch Davis will check in with us, the MitchDavisShow.com, talking a little bit of Kentucky, some Memphis, SEC. I know he's as ready as anybody for college football to get started. Second segment, we'll head over to Savannah, ESPN Coastal. Ben Troupe, Gator All-American tight end, played for the Titans for 5 years. One of the more just inspiring people. He just sent me a copy of his new book, Uncommon, Unfinished. Looking forward to talking with Ben about this college football season and what's going on down there with his Gators and Georgia, South Carolina. We're going to hit a lot of the schools over there in the SEC East. Top of hour number 2. Look, Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, checks in from Knoxville. Yesterday, talked with Mark. They have been working all week getting their tailgate. They'll have about 300 people there in Knoxville for actually tomorrow night's game against Ball State. Holy cow. It's tomorrow night. And hopefully Shoney the Snake is going to join us in the last few minutes talking about these lines on the college football games that are out there. I really break them down and talk some high school football in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. A subject that's never far from our hearts every day. We're with you 8 to 10. And again, want to say this, 6 days a week. Check us, www.sidelines.live and Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin area, part of the Radio Alabama group. We talk SEC and college football in the South and around the country 6 days a week. That's what we do. That's who we are. And who we are is the people talking to. We are the people talking to Mitch Davis. Mitch, I was on your podcast, the MitchDavisShow.com Monday. That was a lot of fun. We had a good breakdown of SEC East, SEC West teams that we think could make a move this year. And I'm gonna start off with in the East. Georgia is the prohibitive favorite. Now, they've got to replace a lot of people. There's a lot of freshmen and sophomores that are going to be playing. Kentucky, and Jimmy, made a point the other day with me about it. He said, look, they're stout on the offensive and defensive lines of scrimmage, and they will play October 29th. Tennessee will against Kentucky. That game will be in Knoxville. And I think you can make a pretty good point. If Kentucky goes into Knoxville and gets a win, which is not going to be easy, that November 19th matchup, if things go according to plan for Kentucky, could be the biggest game ever. But we're looking way ahead. But what are you hearing? What's the takeaway right now as Kentucky gets ready for game 1 on Saturday?
Rob, it's always an honor to talk with you. Thanks for coming on my show Tuesday night. I had a lot of fun. We're possibly make that a weekly thing. I think that'd be a lot of fun for both your fans, my fans, combine the two and have a lot of fun there. As far as Kentucky goes, obviously Chris Rodriguez is going to be out game 1. Chris Rodriguez had a drunk driving incident, where he got a DUI, I think a possession either of a firearm or marijuana. Couldn't remember exactly which one it was, but he's out for game 1, likely going to be out for game 2 against the Florida Gators. But things in Lexington are still exciting. Kentucky's got 4 or 5 running backs right behind him. Smoke and a couple other younger guys that are going to come in and make a difference maker. And really, Will Levis has made a lot of improvements this offseason. And everybody keeps talking about Tennessee being the toughest game for Kentucky. I think the 2 toughest games for Kentucky leading up to that Georgia game are coming up here in the next month. You've got Florida September 10th, and you've got at Ole Miss, both road games on October 1 there in Oxford at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium.
Yeah, and you're going to be catching Florida the week after they play Utah. And we were talking yesterday about the Utah's a 2.5-point favorite in the Swamp. Everybody emotionally is excited about that game, Florida at home. But again, it doesn't matter where it's played. You got to face the fact Utah is a really good football team. They won the Pac-12. I think they're the prohibitive favorite again this year. 18th year Kyle Whittingham has been there. So I look, if you're Kentucky, you're thinking in the last 4 years, 10 wins twice. It's never happened before. Mark Stoops gets the first win he gets this year. I believe that will put him at the top of the list of the winningest football coaches in Kentucky history. So there's a lot of good stuff. Mitch, want to ask you another one, and I'm looking here in the East. When you look at South Carolina, that's a program that when Steve Spurrier was there, they had the 3-11 win seasons in a row, 2011, 12, and 13. They had Jadeveon Clowney and Marcus Lattimore, Stephen Garcia. They had some really good players. Garcia was not as consistent as a quarterback as Steve Spurrier would have liked, but just quickly, Cliff Note version. Can South Carolina with Shane Beamer this year be a threat to Georgia?
Can they? Yes. Will they? No. I'm not a huge. I mean, they won 7 games last year. And the hype around them. Everybody's going to overreact when. Same thing with Tennessee. Tennessee won what, Rob? Maybe 6-7 games last year.
Yeah.
And now everybody's thinking, oh, Tennessee's back. They're back. They're like Texas. Tennessee is like Texas, but we'll get to Tennessee later. South Carolina, they have the horses, but I just don't see them competing with Georgia, Kentucky for that top spot in the SEC East. And I really think that SEC East race comes down to the Bluegrass State and the boys in Athens defending national champions. When you look at the overall body, Tennessee's still a year off. They only won 7 games last year. They lost to Purdue in the Music City Bowl. But then you go to South Carolina. South Carolina, sure, they won the belt, or what is it now called? The Duke's Mayo Bowl. Call it the Belt Bowl. Now it's called the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Yeah.
They won 7 games, and now their fans think they're going to be national champions. It's just the overreaction of the media and the overreaction of fans that really we have nothing else to talk about for 229 days leading up to the season. So that's where I think South Carolina's at right now.
Well, I will say this about South Carolina. They're like every other fan base. They have some success. And, you look at Nick Saban's first year at Alabama, they were 7-6. They had to win the Weed Eater Bowl to avoid having a losing season. Next year, they're 12-0 when they go play Florida in the SEC championship game. And they lost big, but the next year they won it and won the national championship. Your first year, Shane Beamer said it's not a rebuild. It's not fair to the guys who've been here for a long time. We're here to win right away. I just say Tennessee on the flip side, take a look at their 2 deep depth chart. There's a lot of experience there. Don't count them out. Jimmy, I know you got some questions here. I'm going to tell you right now, Mitch, I think Tennessee, it's not hype. I think it's reality that they are going to be a pretty good football team this year. And as Doug Dean said on Monday, with their quarterback up there, there's going to be a happy hooker in Knoxville. But Jimmy?
Well, all I know is that a Tennessee team under Josh Heupel in their first year that most people thought would be lucky to have a winning season beat a 10-win Kentucky team in Lexington. I think one of the big, bumps in the road, if you could call it that, regarding the Stoops era, which he's done a fantastic job in, has been their inability to beat Tennessee as much as they should have, And last year, I just didn't see Tennessee coming in there and winning in Lexington, and they've been able to do it on a regular basis, which was very surprising to me because, again, defensively, we all know Tennessee's kind of shaky, but man, they put up a ton of points in Lexington and were able to hold them off at the end. So, I mean, if I'm Mark Stoops, one of the red letter dates on that schedule has to be Tennessee. And they did win there 2 years ago convincingly when Tennessee, to say the least, was having some quarterback issues. But I think that's really got to be a focus of the Kentucky program going forward because it's been so successful in a lot of other ways. But that's to start being able to beat Tennessee on a regular basis. And Tennessee, in my mind, I mean, they shocked most everybody last year. They set all these school records offensively. And when you can put points on the board like they can, you got a chance to beat anybody. And yeah, they obviously have concerns defensively, especially in the secondary and at their corners. But every team has some issues. But again, Tennessee, in my mind, is a team that's really on the upswing. As a matter of fact, I mean, Roman Harper picked them to win in Athens this year. Now, I certainly don't, but that just tells you that when you have an offense that is that explosive, they're a team that everybody on their schedule has to really be watchful for.
Yeah, and Mitch, I got to ask you something. You talk about Cavassier Smoke, who's from Wetumpka, Alabama, which is Lake Martin, Lake Martin area, Kalijah, Wetumpka. His guy's a good player. Kentucky's got some depth at running back. You're going to find out quickly how deep they are, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly, Rob. We'll see it week 1 against Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is picked to finish first in the MAC in their division. Miami of Ohio is a solid team. Kentucky should handle them, being a MAC team and being how good as Kentucky is. But it's going to be interesting to see who replaces Wan'Dale Robertson. I've heard a couple names thrown out, but really no definitive answer from the coaching staff so far on who's going to replace Wan'Dale Robertson. He's a big loss, but we saw with Lynn Bowden, somebody else steps up, and that's what has been the calling card for Kentucky, just the same way as it has with the University of Memphis.
I got to ask you this now. That line opened up, I think, Mississippi State -8 at home Saturday against Memphis. It's what, -16 now? What the wide world of sports is going on with that?
Because people think that Mike Leach is going to blow out Memphis, and I'm here to tell you that he's not. I really believe in this Memphis team, and we've all been talking about this offseason. Mississippi State's going to want revenge. They're going to want revenge from last year's blown call, but revenge does not win football games.
Nope,
Revenge does not win football games. Sure, Mississippi State has Will Rogers, but Mississippi State's defense last year was not Mississippi State's defense of old, and those guys, from what I saw in the spring game, are really just that overbearing force that you have to be scared of. And you look at Mississippi State's last 3 or 4 games, and State completely caved down. They didn't go, normally in your bowl game you look a lot better than you did in the regular season. Mississippi State got blown out by a decent, not a good, but a decent Texas Tech team. It was 42-0, 42-7, something like that. So I'm not exactly scared of Mississippi State from Memphis State. I think Memphis, I've been to a couple of the practices to talk to the coaching staff. Memphis is ready. They're all in. They're bought in. They're ready to go down the Starfield and get that win.
But the thing that Mississippi State has in their favor, it's not that it's in Starkville. But that is a great atmosphere. I mean, Duty. Yeah, look. Davis Wade Stadium, Scott Field, and Starkville. Will Rogers in his 3rd year. And look, we're about to go. We're about 2 minutes from a break, but I don't want to get started on too much. But I think Mike Leach, when you look at his track record when he has a quarterback who's been in his system for 3 years, that's when you start to see the wins coming. Zach Arnett's a very good defensive coordinator. I think that game is going to be. Look, that's why they play the game. Yeah. No one ever wins them before they're played. All right, a couple of things before we go to the break, Mitch. Want to ask you, let's flip over to the West. Now, Arkansas is my choice as the second best team behind Alabama. I'm not buying A&M being there. I'm not sold on Haynes King, the starting quarterback. Who's your pick to unseat, to push Alabama the hardest in the West?
Oof, that's a really good question. My two are down to Ole Miss and Arkansas. I still believe in Lane Kiffin. They had a pretty decent season last season. I really, personally speaking, I've talked to a lot of people in Oxford. Obviously, I cover Ole Miss. It sounds like Dart's going to be the starting quarterback, but Luke Altmaier is my favorite guy on that roster. He's a hard-working dude. He gets the program. He picked up the pieces when Matt Corral got hurt, Sugar Bowl. If you had a gun to my head right now, I'm picking Ole Miss to be the second best team in the SEC West.
Look, I saw a bumper sticker that said, honk if you have a USC transfer as your starting quarterback. There's a lot. Keaton Slovis is now – he's going to start at Pitt tomorrow night in the Backyard Brawl. And JT Daniels, who went to Georgia, now at West Virginia, will start for West Virginia. And looks like Jackson Dart, another Southern Cal transfer. watch out for that big tight end, Michael Trigg. He's from the Tampa area. Franz Beard said he went and watched him play a high school basketball game one time down when he lived in Florida. The kid scored 42 points. He's a big one. Look, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on LSU and what's going on, what you think is going to happen with Brian Kelly. And Jimmy and I have been talking about it a lot, just, interested to get your perspective. Hey, we are here at Red River Ford Toyota, beautiful Wynne, Arkansas, open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Check them out on the website, redriverfordtoyota.com. They deliver anywhere, Jacksonville, Memphis, Dallas. Be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Mitch, let's talk about LSU. And you've got about 5 minutes to go. Brian Kelly, he has won everywhere he's been. Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame. He hit the ceiling at Notre Dame. 2 college football playoff appearances. And in 2012, they played and were stomped by Alabama in the BCS championship, 42-14. What do you see? What will be considered success in year one for Kelly down at LSU?
I really think an 8-win, 9-win season for the Tigers is going to be considered a success. And, the thing about it is, Rob, and you and I have talked about it. I've talked about it a lot on my show and a lot of articles. I just don't think Brian Kelly is the right guy for this job. He came in with the fake, Southern drawl, and he tried to win over the fans.
Don't overrate that. That he was having fun with that.
A lot of people are still loyal to Coach O. Coach O was fired because he, was hitting on a couple women up there. And, honestly, if you look at the LSU people, you can't really blame him, Rob. But he was hitting on a couple women, got fired, and a lot of the people down in Baton Rouge are still upset about that. They're, oh, why'd you fire a homeboy? What, he didn't do anything illegal. He didn't do anything that got us in trouble with the NCAA. It's going to be hard for Brian Kelly to win over the Cajun people. But honestly, Rob, the only thing that cures all is winning. If Brian Kelly can come in there and win, cool. But it's a different breed than them playing in the independent or playing in the MAC when you get to the SEC. He's not used to this competition.
Well, I think he's going to be, and I'm with Jimmy. I think he's going to win big at LSU. I think he is a really good coach, and I do not agree. I think LSU people, and I know a lot of them, they all loved Coach O for being from Bayou Lafourche and being one of them and all. But the program, he had just taken his eye off the prize, and I think had he stayed, and I mean I like Coach O, but you can't sustain your program the way they were heading. I mean, 2 years after a national championship, you play a bowl game with 38 scholarship players. I mean, that right there was, I mean, there were canaries in the coal mine immediately after the national championship, but they had to make a change. And I tell you, Kelly is recruiting really well. I'm going to disagree with you on that one. One more and we'll let you go. I'm looking at Texas A&M. They have all the money in the world. They have everything. I think that football facility, they brush the players' teeth. I mean, they breathe for them. They do everything. I personally think it's too nice. You can make things to where you're too soft and you're not tough enough. Jimbo Fisher, this is year 5. What will be a minimum number of wins for this to be a successful season?
Rob, I think it's at the point that Jimbo Fisher has ran his mouth enough. I think he's called out the big boys. He said everybody knows what he said. It's college football playoffs or bust for Texas A&M this season. I feel that in my heart of hearts, and I really, truthfully, that's a coach that I think is probably one of the most overrated coaches in college football. He talks the talk, but he can never really back it up. Sure, you can win a national championship with a guy like Jameis Winston at Florida State. He had a great team around you, but you've also had great teams at Texas A&M, and your ceiling has been, they went to the Orange Bowl last year, but really it's been on a level of a Gator Bowl, and that really has been the history of Texas A&M football so far. We saw it under Kevin Sumlin. He had the talent. Johnny Manziel, Mike Evans. Mike Evans is now playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Johnny Manziel's a Heisman winner. Texas A&M is a program that hasn't won anything. And Rob, maybe you can correct me. In 82 years, they haven't won anything, and they think that they belong on the big stage. Same with their big brother in the University of Texas. Texas is always talking and talking and talking, and they haven't done anything in a hot minute.
Well, I'll say this about A&M. Olin Buchanan, our friend, covers them for Texags.com. I like Jimbo. I remember him he was 28 years old when he came to Auburn as quarterback's coach and did a heck of a job there. And they're no doubt the guy can recruit and all, but at A&M after 4 years, he has the same record Kevin Sumlin had, and Kevin Sumlin had more wins versus top 5 and top 10 teams at home and on the road than Jimbo Fisher does. Now, this is year 5. If you're counting on that freshman class coming in, Mitch, that's dangerous. Don't want to do that. But look, I know you got to get to a meeting. Great stuff. But look, we may agree, we may disagree, but that's what makes the show entertaining. Tell people how they can follow you, and I'll let you get into your banker's Superman cape.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Rob. Thanks for always having me on. You can follow me at themitchdavisshow.com. We're going to have Brian Moss on tonight on the podcast, previewing the Memphis and Mississippi State game. He's my old boss there at TigerSportsReport.com. Got the Tim Brando interview up. Tim Brando's an awesome guy. Vince Dooley's up there. Got a lot of great articles. Follow me on Twitter, MitchDavis_8. And then basically you type in on any social media, The Mitch Davis Show, even on YouTube, and you can find me there as well.
Hey, Mitch, this is great. We'll do it again next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. Okay, Jimmy, I don't know. You must be moving in that Chicago traffic or something if you're there. But I got to ask you, looking at A&M, and we'll have Olin on. Hopefully we'll get him on here in the next couple of days from Texags.com. Jimbo's record is the same after 4 years as Kevin Sumlin. When people say that, what do you draw from that? It's not always, an exact comparison, but the top 5 wins, home and away, top 10 wins, home and away. Sumlin is on top in both of those categories.
Kevin Sumlin had Johnny Manziel playing quarterback, and Jimbo Fisher hasn't. That's pretty much what it comes down to. I mean, they won, A&M won, I don't know, somewhere in 22 games, Sumlin's first 2 years when he had Manziel at quarterback. And then after that, well, that's something I think Aggie fans would more or less kind of like to forget. And even when Jimbo had, for the better part of 4 years, Kevin Mond as his starting quarterback, he was still wildly inconsistent. I mean, I was never a big Mond guy. He's like a lot of flashy players. When he's good, he's great. And then when he's not good at all. And you just got to have solid quarterback play. And not only solid quarterback play, which doesn't involve turning the ball over, but at the same time, you have to make plays in clutch situations also.
Yeah, and Jimmy, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to ask you something, and you made some great points, and that's why I didn't want to get. Mitch texted and said he had to get off and get into a meeting, so we had to cut short. But I want to pick up on something. Kellen Mond, here's a case where a guy can say, he statistically is the all-time passing leader in Texas A&M history. Now, he has more yards. He played a longer, 4 years than Johnny Manziel. So statistically, he's on top. But if you ask A&M fans, who's the greatest quarterback in A&M history, who are they going to tell you that is?
Yeah, and he only played 2 years. Mon played 4. I mean, you don't have to be a mathematical genius to, figure that out. But again, though, if some people want to make a point, they can, you can kind of tilt the stats any way you want, And there's one minor little detail I forgot. This guy played 2 years more than the other.
Yeah, that's just kind of a big deal. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just had to.
No, that's okay.
But look, it's just look, Johnny Manziel. Remember Tony Barnhart? I believe it was Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. He was on with us Monday. Wasn't it back in 2010 years ago in the preseason? He nicknamed him Johnny Football, didn't he?
I don't recall who named him Johnny Football. I don't think it was Tony, but I could very well be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think it came somewhere in the A&M community, but again, I'm not 100% sure, but it just fit like a T because, he was just unbelievable. And even his final year at A&M, when they had lost a couple of their top receivers, and then Evans just comes out of nowhere to have an All-American final season at A&M. They didn't have nearly the help for him that he had in his Heisman Trophy season, but yet he still put up tremendous numbers. And in neither one of those 2 Manziel years was their defense very good, so he was under the gun to put up 40, 45 points every week, not to just win, but for his team to have a chance to win. So I'm telling you, no matter what anybody says about his NFL career, which was obviously a huge bust.
Yeah.
But as far as his college years, he's one of the best college football players we've seen.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And that's where, again, people make this mistake of what you do in the pros versus what you did in college. There are a lot of quarterbacks who go to the NFL and they don't do well, but you remember their college career, and that's what we remember. The years when they were there. That's what the history, traditions, and heroes of college football were so passionate about. Frank Duffy, commenting from down in Tampa, said he agreed with my comment about Coach O took his eye off the prize. And he said, Mitch, he'll fit in. Brian Kelly will fit in fine down here. He just needs to win, especially those big games in November. And keep in mind, as Frank says, if Brian Kelly starts winning big, we'll all adopt Massachusetts accents. And I might add that, can you see it now? They'll have a special new gumbo chowder. that could be big. Listen, they're going to have fun with that. But Jimmy, I'm with you. And about Brian Kelly. I mean, this guy, he's sharp. He knows what he's doing. He's a meticulous planner. I was there at SEC Media Days. Just the way he handles and the questions and carries himself. He gets it. No doubt about that. Ben Troupe is on with us right now. We're going to head down to Savannah. I was looking at something on my phone. Anyway, native of Swainsboro, Georgia, Gator, tight end, All-American, played for Coach Steve Spurrier and Ron Zook, and then 5 years in the NFL with the Titans. And Ben, I got your book, and I really appreciate you sending me that book. And I started reading it last night. It's really good. And, let me just say this. We live in an age where narcissism seems to be in vogue. You're writing a book about being grateful for what you are, your journey through life, and about ways to give back to people that have helped you along the way. Other than that, what else would you need for the second coming? I mean, I love the book, and I'm going to read the entire book. But thank you for writing it. Talk about the book, and it's uncommon as the title. and unfinished. Is that? I'm sitting there. I hope I got it right, but
yeah.
Yeah, uncounted and unfinished. It's
No, you go ahead.
No, it's saying it's just a great book that we read so many books. People writing 2 autobiographies before they turn 40 is a little bit narcissistic. Here you are writing a book about your journey, but again, how the people that have helped you along the way, your experiences and all. And now I see why Buddy Martin, Franz Beard, and the people down at GatorbaitMedia.com, the Buddy Martin Show, love having you on. And again, I've watched you interact with Gator football players. I saw you on there, I believe, with Osiris Torrance, the big guy. I mean, the big guy. He's 6'8", about 340, transfer from Louisiana with Billy Napier. And you just talked about, I don't want anything. I don't need anything. I just want to be a sounding board to help you because I've been where you are at this stage in your life before. And all right, now here we are 24 hours from now. They're going to tee it up in Knoxville. Tennessee plays Ball State. The other 12 schools, including Georgia and Florida and Auburn, everybody kick it off on Saturday. Let's kind of set the stage, man, because you're a fierce competitor, and you didn't get where you are in life by being a snowflake. You are a winner. You were born that way. You're wired that way. What's going on down there in Gainesville right now in the Gator Nation with the people down there at this point?
They're anxious, and all eyes gonna be on Knoxville today. It's almost like the crazy thing about sports is, as much as we act like we don't care about what goes on in the other schools, of course we do. Of course we're gonna be wild, because the thing is, you kill all the narratives once you out there on the field. So once you out there on the field, if Tennessee looks, they probably gonna look real good. Hendon Hooker, second year under this hyper offense, they probably gonna look real good. And you start saying to yourself, dude, when did we got them? Because what happens is you respect it. Like, I think it's a healthy disrespect and it's a healthy respect all at the same time, and only sports can achieve that. But Billy Napier is saying, dude, my debut is coming Saturday night, and I know there is a week 1 slate of games that is about as good as I've seen in a long time in college football across the board. You got some great games, but he's still a feature game. Why? First year coach, at Florida. First time at the University of Florida, trying to go out and get a big win. But Rob, at the end of the day, it's about how you look more than how you play. Because now, with the emergence of social media, we living and dying with every single play, every single decision. I mean, I'm not a Nebraska fan, but if I were, I would be losing my mind because of what happened. Because now it used to be only certain people saw it. No, everybody saw it. And if, in case you didn't see it, it's all on your timeline. But Florida right now understands, I don't care who you're running out there. I don't care who it is. No one's people talk about the injuries and the backup quarterbacks. It's Florida versus Utah, and Utah wants nothing more than to keep their postseason aspirations really high by coming into Florida, getting a big win. Humidity and all that stuff, I get the storylines, but Rob, at the end of the day, it's 11-11. Defending Pac-12 champions versus a team in the East is trying to get back at least to that second team in the East. I think Georgia is still miles and miles ahead of everybody, but it's anxiousness now. Now, you're going to say the right things to the media, but you chomping at the bit. You're trying to get out there.
Yeah, and Utah's a 2.5-point favorite, and we're about to go to a break, and we're going to get back into this. But this is the 18th year Kyle Whittingham's been out there. But the thing about Florida that I noticed as an Auburn fan growing up, I mean, I know what that rivalry is like. And when you play Florida, you are playing a team that they're always going to have athletes. And the knock on Dan Mullen was he didn't like to recruit. And believe it or not, even at the University of Florida, where you're basically, when it comes to talent, you're on a gravy train with biscuit wheels, man. I mean, but you still got to go out there and let these people know that you want them. You want them to be part of the Gator Nation. And man, I go back to Billy Napier when the moment he arrived on campus, is like, hey, I'm not going to wait 3 years to get my guys. Y'all are the guys I'm going to win with from day one. We're going to be right back with more Ben Troupe and Jimmy Hodge on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, Go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, back here with Ben Troupe down in Savannah, Georgia, Jimmy Hodge, Rob Browne on this Wednesday. Wow, August 31st. It again, you're right, Ben. Before the break, you did say we all act like we don't care, but we do care. And the reason why we want to beat these other schools is deep down, we respect them. And deep down, I know a lot of people have a hard time admitting this. How much fun would it be if, in the case of Florida and Florida State, if you're a Florida fan and you want Florida State to lose every game, do you think TV is going to want to show Florida versus an 0-11 Florida State team, or switch it the other way around? The Iron Bowl, Auburn and Alabama, intense rivalry as it gets. But, you know, it looks a lot better for TV when you got 11-0 versus 10-1 or 11-0. That's a dream. And so the interest, you look at in Florida's case, they are building this back in terms of talent and all. When you were there, Steve Spurrier came in, recruited you down there. You finished your career with Ron Zook. There was a lot of talent on that team. And whether you're first team or third team, how do some guys deal with that better than others?
It really depends on your role. And I think sometimes, Rob, when everybody's a man coming from their particular, city, state, high school, and most guys have never rode the bench, like in their whole life. Never. Like, I've been the guy in Pop Warner, middle school, high school. But if you honest with yourself, which I had to be honest with myself, nobody's from where I'm from. Meaning, I'm the only kid at the school from Swainsboro in Augusta, Georgia. So they're asking me about it. But you got to get rid of that selfishness, because if I'm being honest with myself, I'm talented enough to play. That don't mean you're ready to play. I was talented, and I think the hardest thing about college is understanding you only going to play if the head coach trusts you. I don't care what your position coach say. I don't care what the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator say, because with Spurrier or Ron Zook say, if it's a blind taste test, if you turn on the TV and they just stop to watch our game, those 11 on the field got to represent the best players on this campus. And what if you one of those 11 because you haven't played? So, and now that I'm away from the game, I understand it didn't matter how I felt. I could tell my mom all kind of stuff. Man, we make up so much stuff about coaches. We make up stuff about coaches like students make up stuff about teachers when they don't pass the class. Well, she don't like me. But you also didn't turn in your class. You also didn't turn in your work. You also ain't attentive. And I think those things nowadays even more, these 5 stars, they be messing with guys' minds. I said, yeah, man, we want the best players. That don't mean you're going to play. Case in point, Stetson Bennett is surrounded by 5 stars. Why can't they play? I mean, they supposed to be better than him, right? He's the only one got a call from Kirby Smart. He's the only one was a walk-on. But his competitive nature means, man, I ain't really worried about these stars, man. What do I do on the field? And I think nowadays, every time I go on Twitter, I see a kid that I'm breaking it down to my top 20. You don't got 20 out. You don't got a top 20 list. Break it down to 2 or 3, because the transfer portal, it's lying to these young men at this point.
Yeah, and Ben, Mac Browne was on Paul Feinbaum's show a couple of weeks ago. He's now the head coach at North Carolina on his second tour of duty up there. I believe the figure was 4,000 guys in the portal. And my wife Audrey said, and they're still in the portal. They hadn't been picked up by anybody. And it's like, the Island of Misfit Toys and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, guys is like, I'm a defensive end that can't rush the passer. Nobody wants you. Yeah. So you might as well have been better off staying where you were. But I think in your case, you came in as a big-time recruit to the University of Florida. But again, the way you were raised, you didn't play all those games, but it did take Coach Spurrier coming in and convincing you it was okay to leave the state. And there are a lot of other Georgia kids that leave the state and go down there and play at Florida. But I think that's a great perspective. A lot of the guys have never sat on the bench before, and suddenly you get there. Hey, there's 100 guys on that practice field. I was the best player on my team. Well, guess what? Those other 99 guys or whatever can say the same thing. And if you can't handle that and you can't fight through it and learn to not get – Nick Saban said it the other day. He said people get caught up in wanting to win the national championship. He goes, what you better be caught up in is the process that it takes to get to that point. And that people don't pay attention to that enough. Jimmy, jump in here with Ben Troupe.
Yeah, Ben, I just wanted to get your take on this Utah game because we've been talking about it for months. It's a classic contrast. You've got Utah with 14 returning starters back from the Pac-12 championship team that went to the Rose Bowl, gave Ohio State a good run defensively. They just, in my mind, didn't make the adjustments they needed to at halftime of the Rose Bowl to give themselves a shot to win, but they've got a really solid quarterback. And, you know, it's funny, you were talking about Stetson Bennett and what often happens at the quarterback position when you have talented players. And Cameron Rising, who led Utah to the Pac-12 championship last year, he started the season last year, I think, third string. And from the time he took over the starting quarterback position, they've been a completely different program. And so they're coming into Gainesville with a lot of confidence. They're the preseason Pac-12 favorites. And then you've got the great contrasting storyline with Florida. Billy Napier coming in, a product of the Saban process. He's done a tremendous job from a recruiting standpoint in that he has under-promised and over-delivered up to this point. And just off that alone, he's gotten the Gator fan base excited. But at the same time, you know, he is just focused every single day trying to get this team better. And I personally think because of his experience at Louisiana and the success they had offensively, he could very well be the perfect coach for Anthony Richardson.
You hope so. You definitely hope so, because the thing about Billy Napier, he understands it. He understands this one fact. Look, I know no matter what, I still got people kind of looking at me with the side eye. They're like, dude, he came from the because you think that P5 go from P5 to P5. You don't think it's going to be G5 to P5. You don't think it's going to be. And I think now what I like about Utah is this. You mentioned Rising. You mentioned what they want to do with Utah. Utah gets criticized because of who they are, not how they play. People like, where Utah, Pac-12, because you expected to hear, you know, UW, Oregon, you at USC. These guys run the football. They got a dual threat quarterback. They got two tight ends and Kincaid and Kuthi. These dudes are hard to deal with. Both of them into the draft, took their name out the draft. They got two guys at D tackle that just take up a lot of blockers. So got even Muhammad Diabate coming over from Florida, but you want to know what you are early. And I think too often Florida State has LSU this week. They don't know what type of team they are because of who they played first week. Yeah, they ran the football, but that's not LSU. If you are Florida, and if you are who you say you are, say what you want about Dan Mullen, back-to-back New Year's Six Bowl, still went to an SEC championship game and played Alabama about as good as you can play them.
Yeah.
He understands. Billy Napier understands he got big shoes to fill. And I am not calling for a loss. I hope Florida goes out there and gets it. But Rob, you know this more than anybody. Sometimes it's how you look when you lose more than how you look when you win. Because if it's an embarrassing loss, the Boo Birds are waiting. Dan Mullen should text Billy Napier right now and say, look, man, if it's a firebillynapier.com, you might want to see if it's your wife that put it up there. Because I'm telling you, it's going to get rough if you ain't showing no promise, especially with the Tennessees, the Kentuckys, the Spencer Rattles in South Carolina. So the East has gotten really, really good, really, really fast. You better have a good showing come Saturday night.
I totally agree that it's critical for Florida to really be competitive in this game. I personally think Utah is going to win it. They just have too many intangibles in their favor. But again, the crowd at the Swamp's going to be in a frenzy. And again, if Richardson can get off to a good start, he just comes across as a player that once he gets going and his confidence it's where you want it to be. I mean, he's a big load to deal with. And but as you say, let's say they come out on the short end against Utah. You got a Kentucky team coming into Gainesville next week that's coming off their second 10-win season in the last 4 years, and you got a really experienced quarterback in Levis, and man, you're going to have to bounce right back and get ready to play a really tough SEC opponent.
Yeah, I mean, I know Mark Stoops doesn't get enough credit. I mean, for what he's done at Kentucky, and that's what you want, though. You don't want no layoffs. I don't want no layover. You're gonna have to get past whatever happens Saturday night. But if you are Billy Napier, you got to establish an offensive identity, which I think is going to be running the football behind Osiris Torres, and you're going to have to be able to show why these seniors came back. Trey Dean, Ventrell Miller, Brenton Cox, Javon Dexter, Jason Martin. You guys got to go out there because you want to know what type of team you have, because Kentucky, they can't wait to do the Gator Champions. They come into Florida and win, and that's what you like about college football now. There are no mulligans. There are no get-it-right seasons. You got to come out the gate showing promise.
Yeah, Ben, when you played in the NFL, and we're talking about a Pac-12 versus SEC matchup, and so the Pac-12 has taken a lot of hits. You got Southern Cal and UCLA going to the Big Ten. We don't know if any other schools will, but it looks likely that there may be some more go to the Big Ten so they can have a, quote, Pacific division of that conference. Did you notice a big difference when you came in to the NFL of players that came from the Pac-12 versus your fellow SEC players and maybe Big Ten and ACC?
Yes, because you always got you'll have a really, really good Pac-12 player, but they sprinkle them in with SEC players. So a lot of times they're benefiting from that guy. Like when I get to the Titans, I mean, yeah, I played with some guys. I played with Lindale White that came from the Pac-12. But you look at the defense. Who was the anchor of the defense? Albert Hainsworth. That's when he was a straight hell raiser. That's when this is pre-Washington Albert Hainsworth. And I think what happens is any really, really good team understands this. The core of your team, you need to have SEC players. That don't mean they got to be the best player, but the core of it, because you coming from, forget the fact that you won. You know how hard it is to play at Alabama. You know how hard it is to play at these schools just to get on the field. So, yeah, I respect everybody, though. I respect everybody. I mean, I know those Big Ten players, Big 12 players don't, they always say because you get the moniker of the big bad SEC. I said, well, that's what the world says. Like, we just go out there and play. But people go, why would Eli Manning go first pick to New York? Because he played at the same alma. He played his alma mater where his daddy played, and he's used to scrutiny. I'm Peyton Manning's little brother. I've dealt with this stuff my whole life, so it's no coincidence he's had the career that he's had. And I respect every football player that strap it up. The best players you will go up against, to me, in the NFL are HBCU players, D2 players, because they get the disrespect factor of, oh, that's just them. But yeah, you definitely want to. If the SEC gonna have the most players drafted every single year in the draft, from as long as the draft go on now, they're gonna have the most because they give you the highest success rate.
Yeah, and I like what you just said about it. There's like a dozen players from HBCUs, and then you get some Division II guys on the Senior Bowl watch list. Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl in Mobile, was on with us last week, and he knows what a player looks like. He's been down there the last few years in Mobile, but that was after 18 years in the NFL with the Packers. He won a Super Bowl there on that staff, 2 with New England with Bill Belichick, and then another one with Pete Carroll out in Seattle. And it's hard to believe Seattle, some people are thinking maybe one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. But got another question for you, Ben, because again, you're a warrior, and you can feel it, you can see it when you're on radio, you're on StreamYard like we are now. When you lose a game in the NFL, talk about the state of mind. Before we know about NIL now, this is my question. When you lose a game in the NFL, is it as emotionally painful? Because I'm thinking it is, because nothing's guaranteed. You can be cut. We saw where Alex Leatherwood was taken out of Alabama last year, the number 17 pick in the draft, is already out with the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, nothing's guaranteed. Are you as emotionally distraught after a loss in the NFL as you were when you played for the University of Florida?
You are. It depends on where you are in your career. When you're a rookie and you really don't understand the severity of losing games in the National Football League, you ain't as distraught. But you have to learn everything in the league. You got to learn how to compartmentalize losses. You got to learn how to take from those things and grow from them. But when I was at Florida, it was different because I really knew those dudes. Like, I know his mom, I know his dad, I know his family. Yeah. And when you lose them, because I understand this. Thank God I was blessed enough to have a pro career. I know for some of these guys, this is it for them. So the memories, somebody told me this, when you're a, quote, great player, your friends spend the rest of their life talking about playing with you. They ask you about how you play. They ask them about who they played with. And the greatest thing I was able to learn when I was at Florida was, man, I'm a teammate through and through. I don't care about no individual accolades, man. As my coach say, this ain't golf. This ain't tennis. You wanted to come out here and put yours with those other 10 guys because I benefited from them. Like I say this all the time. I say, man, I appreciate the praise that people give me. I said, but do you look at who I played with? It's almost like I'm saying I got to be able to, step my game up to help them. The National Football League is so fickle because guys make so much money that just look at when you're on the plane. I went from Tennessee that was building a culture. I went to Tampa, right, that had an established culture, and I went to Raiders that had none. The Raiders did not have a culture out there, and you can tell. And that I always say this: if Jamarcus Russell got drafted by the New England Patriots, he would have been a totally different player because of the structure. Because so the National Football League losing, it just depends on where you are. Because like I said, I didn't go to a quote prestigious franchise. Tampa, what it is now with Tom Brady and what it was, and I had John Gruden. It wasn't the same thing, but it is tough though, because when all I do is play football, it's my livelihood, Rob. And in a place like Tennessee, you can't hide, man. Everywhere I congregate, there go fans. They, that's back when they had Kmart. They ain't even got Kmart number. They looking at me in the line like, oh, he better be shopping here because maybe he can't afford something nicer or whatever. But hey, but I appreciate it all. I lost a lot when I was in the National Football League, but my fourth year making it to the playoffs, it was so special because we went from 4-12 to 5-11 to 8-8 to 10-6. So it was a steady progression.
Well, and that's why I wanted to ask that question, is the emotional part of it. And you look at now, if you've got a guy, an 18, 19-year-old kid with a multi-million-dollar NIL deal, I just worry about their state of mind. And there are going to be a lot of people, and having played professional football, when you're making that kind of money, a lot of people come out of the woodwork and want to befriend you. And you just said it, you got to compartmentalize. And just I've seen this. Anyone that can survive, 3 or 4, 5 years in the NFL, you got to be very smart. You got to be very disciplined, and you've got to have a great group of people around you and strong faith, because, man, people are coming at you 24/7. I think you just laid it out about the mental part of it and the culture. We're going to take a break, and if you can stay on with us for a few more minutes, got a few more questions. It's just that culture where, hey, if you'd have gone to New England, it would have been different. And you think about that, Bill Belichick, people we've talked to that played for him, it's detail, perfection. That's all he asked for. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Ben, I want to ask you another question on your book. If you could hold it up so people can see it, and then they want to order it for a gift, for Christmas or whatever, how they can do that.
Yes, well, this is my book, Uncommon and Unfinished. The Being Troupe store with BJ Bennett. They can always go to beingtroupe84.com and get you a copy. And I mean, it's also sold in about every major retailer that sell books. But the easiest way to get it is beingtroupe84.com. And Rob, I appreciate those words when you first came on. I think sometimes when you think about a project like a book, the first thing you have to ask yourself is why and who. Why are you writing the who are you writing it to? And my friend who wrote the foreword, Entree Drummer, he actually came up with the title of the book. He's the one that posed me the question. And I was writing it to my family, but I was also writing it to my teammates because my teammates became my family. I know how to celebrate people because I've been celebrated that long. So I know how to do something. Like every time people meet us, they want to meet me. They ask my brother about me, my sister about me, my mom and dad about me. So this is my way of saying my mom and dad, they'll never write a book, right? They won't write a book because of the time it takes to do it. It'll take these people 2 years to do it. So everything I do is a reflection of them. And I try to, case in point, when I was writing the book, my mom has her own chapter. And she told me, listen, I'm not telling you what to do in your book, but I think I deserve my own chapter. I'm not telling you what to do, but it's the greatest feeling in the world. And the reason why I wrote a book was I'm blessed enough to be able to go around the country and speak. And I had this lady come up to me and ask me, did I have a book one time? And I said, why? She was like, because that's how I can take you home with me. Meaning I get to learn about you. You introduce yourself through your words, and this right here is forever. So it's the greatest blessing in the world to me. It's one of those things to where my teammates that get the book, like, man, you ain't tell me you was in the book. I said, yeah, that's why I told you to buy it and read it. That's why I told you to get it and read it. So because there's so many guys that had such a direct, impact on my life that have no clue. People think it's gonna be the all SEC, all American, all pro. No, man, it was the guys that no one knows. They are role players, but they played a huge role in my life. So it's BJ Bennett. I mean, he deserves everything because that boy was sending me chapter 1 to chapter 2 was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. So he was very, very good to me, man. I'm very, very indebted to him.
Let me ask you this, and I agree with everything you just said. It's about all the people along the way in the journey. I was talking with former Auburn player Tommy Agee at a dinner in Birmingham last week for the Coach Safely Foundation to get more kids playing football. And I said, Tommy, and this is the question that I ask. I'm going to ask you. And even if you don't get on the field as a starter, you had teammates that were on the scout team but they got you ready for every game. They simulated the opponents, whatever like that. I bet you those guys had a lot of respect because they were going out there for 4 or 5 years. And probably the only time they ran out on the field was to hug their parents and their grandparents and their family on senior day. But they did their part. And when you go into someone like that's office and you see that letter, in your case, an orange F outlined in blue, or the crimson A for Alabama, or the G for Georgia, or Auburn A orange with blue trim, you go, you know what? You went through that for 4 or 5 years. You hung in there and you fought and you brought the damn thing home over and over and over. You learned how to fight and never quit. You got my respect. Where do I sign up? Is it kind of like that?
It's definitely like that. The best players on a football team, you don't know who they are. And I learned that real fast. The most important players are the kicker, punter, and long snapper. You don't believe me? Let 3 of those guys get hurt. You want to see ugly football? Let the 3. They call them specialists for a reason. Everybody else got backups.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, there was a guy named Zephyrin Augustine. He wore number 20. He was like the 3rd or 4th string safety. He knew he was never going to get on the field. And that's who I went up against. My last 2 years of college, me and Zep, we used to call him Zep, we used to go at it, like to the point where he would sit in the lunchroom and look at me when he's eating. But I saw Zep. This is way after my playing days. I went back before to do something, and he's on the field with his wife. And he walks up to me and he says, "Baby, that go Ben right there. That's who I used to give it to him." Listen, if I had any ego in me, any pride in me, I would have crushed it. I would have said, "Man, you don't." But you know what I told him? "You right. I could never do for you what you did for me, Zep. I couldn't, because when Ron Zook comes up to him and say, if he's not ready for Saturday, it's because you didn't push him." And me and Zep, man, I don't know how many. I didn't get into no Aaron Donald fight. Ain't no helmet swinging out there. But we used to get into it, and I realized that's what a team is. A team is not the guys you see; it's the guys you don't. It's those dudes that look. They know. Think about this. I'm showing up to a 6 o'clock run in the morning. And I know I'm not going to play. I'm showing up to everything, and I still got to pay for my books. I still got to pay for my housing. I still got to, in hopes of getting a scholarship. So to the Zephyr and Augustines of the world, to them scout team guys, love y'all to death, because listen, I went to Florida because I got a scholarship. They went to Florida because they loved it. They really, really loved it, because they wasn't guaranteed nothing, and they came out every single day, never complained. And I'm forever indebted to these guys. Now I'm gonna have to write another book just strictly for the scout team guys. Who knows?
Yeah, well, and it's good to hear, because I had friends at Auburn when I was in school there, on the team, on scholarship, some on the scout team, and Tommy talked about a friend of mine and his Joel Gregg from Union Springs, Alabama, and he said, "Man, I love that guy like a brother. I went home with his family and ate at his house and spent the night." Those are the relationships that you've got. And Jimmy, I know you got another question that you want to jump in here and for Ben before we go. So go ahead.
Well, you talk about the experience with players that nobody's ever heard of. How did it start off for you when you first got to Florida? You know how a lot of these ballyhooed players, 4- and 5-star guys, have all these accolades coming in, and then you have so many that aren't ready for the competition because they've always been far and away the most talented player, not only on their team, but maybe in their district or region. And how did it go for you from the first day you got to Florida? Did you really get a quick lay of the land and just decide, hey, it doesn't matter what these guys have done in the past, what their ratings were coming out of high school? I just have to focus on going out there and being the best I can be every day. And did you start, with the scout team level, or did you, have a shot with maybe the second or third string guys? How did that progression work for you?
Wow. When I first got to Florida, it was a culture shock, because I was a pure ability dude, meaning I lifted weights because I got threatened in high school. I wouldn't have lifted no weights. I wouldn't have did no running. And what shocked me was Gus Scott, who started for 4 years out of Trinity Christian High School. He's a DB. He weighs 200 pounds. They was doing a strength test. Everybody was using 225. He was 200 pounds. He did his strength test with 315. He did it like 5 or 6 times. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Then Thaddeus Bullard, Titus O'Neil, as we grow to know him, he's out there with some tights on, showing off his body. And I'm like, man, I might have made a mistake. Like, this stuff is crazy, because I ain't never done nothing like this. And for me was, number one, we didn't do scout team when I was in high school. First time I saw it was at Florida. We didn't do game plans. First time I saw it was at Florida. And what made it the culture shock was, I'm getting so caught up in all the things I got to do. And then a teammate whispered me and said, "Can you play football?" "Yeah, just do that." Like, do that and let everything else come. And that's when it kind of like slowed down for me, because for people who don't know, college is the worst decision you will ever make. And it would be determined upon what your expectations are. If I didn't come in wanting to be no All-American, no all that, I didn't want to do none of that, because thank God, because it took me 4 years to start. I remember being on the scout team. I had to be a show guy for Kenyatta Walker, first round pick to Tampa Bay. He was a big left tackle. And I'm coming on a regular little rush, like, give him a rush. Man, he slammed me on the ground like I was a real defensive end. He lifted my body up off the ground, slammed me on the ground. And then they said, "Well, Troupe, that's not good enough. You got to give him another." And he did it again. I'm like, what? I play tight end trying to give this dude a look. And I'm telling you, you go through a lot. But I will say I wouldn't change nothing about it, because as Ron Zook say, if you can survive when we breaking you down, you'll be around for the build-up. Their job is to break you, from the strength coaches to the nutritionists to the position. They're trying to see where you are mentally. I told my position coach, I don't think I'm built for this. You know what he told me? Well, we don't need you. We won't even miss you on Saturday. You don't think we're going to run out a bunch of guys that want to play? So that entitlement stuff, man, that stuff goes out the window. If Anthony Richardson and every quarterback on the roster right now gets hurt, I guarantee you they run it out there on Saturday night. It ain't gonna be pretty. And that's what my mindset was. It wasn't about, oh, you being true. man, I played with some great players, Alex Browne and Teatric Faison and Lito Shepherd and Mike Pearson. And those guys knew they were going to be good. Man, I'm a tight end in an offense that don't even throw the ball. Without runs up, I would have caught 10 passes my whole career, but it ain't even about that. By the time I became a senior, I was worried about making sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do for the betterment of the team. I was so not worried about me no more because it was over. It took me 3 years to understand, Ben, you are a teammate. All that other stuff is just fluff. But when you first get there, when I'm 17 years old, no hair on my face, I had the baby face like no other. Them boys looking at me like, you look like a football player. Can you play football? And then I put on pads and got hit. And I had some serious doubts about this Florida stuff. I'm like, I don't know. This stuff here is rough. These DBs here harder than linebackers, man. This stuff is crazy out here.
Yeah. Ben, look, we run out of time, but great stuff. Getting inside your mind, that was a neat discussion right there. And let's do this again here in the next week or so, because you give a perspective, having been a Florida Gator All-American, played in the NFL 5 years. Not many people can say that. But again, tell people how they can follow you on social media and all. And appreciate your time very, very much. Love it.
Always, you can always follow me at BenTroupe84 on all social media platforms. At Pigskin Radio for myself, Kevin Thomas, and BJ Bennett. And listen, you're gonna be if you see me on there with a guy named Buddy Martin, Gator Bait, just listen, just love on him. Hey, listen, I told Buddy, I love you, but you got to get a producer, man. You got to get you somebody to help you with them gadgets, as he like to call them.
I'll tell you what, you and Buddy and friends, that I love it. I get that Twitter thing every night, and Buddy, he's y'all have something special down there, and you got something special on your show. But I love it, and thanks so much. Have a great rest of your week. All right, go Gators.
Appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it. That is, I tell you what, that is high energy. Talking with Ben Troupe, Jimmy. And now we're going to go up to Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report up in Knoxville with Mark Hamm. Mark, talking with you yesterday, you were in the store getting ready for the tailgate. We're about, technically, I'd say we're about 32 hours from kickoff, 33 hours from kickoff up in, about 33 hours up in Knoxville against Ball State. Doesn't matter who you're playing. It's that right there before kickoff, that crowd in Neyland Stadium, the pride of the Southland Band will form that giant T, and then the Tennessee Volunteers will run out through there. And as John Ward would say, it's football time in Tennessee. A lot of optimism. And Mark, we were talking yesterday. You got a very analytical mind, breaking it down. And I want you to I'm gonna hand the ball off to you and let you run with it. But man, looking back over that depth chart for Tennessee, the two deep on offense and defense, you're right. There's a lot of experience there. And when you got a lot of guys that have played in 20 and 30 games, watch out.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We're excited. So we're getting rolling here tomorrow night. Yeah, I was in the store buying a bunch of water for our tailgate because it's going to be hot, but it might have been mixed with a little bit of alcohol. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But
yeah,
when you said you're going to hand it off to me, actually, I think you should throw it to me because I think we're going to light it up this year throwing the ball.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, you think about this, the passing game. Yeah. Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton is a backup. Tennessee's got two quarterbacks that have both started a bunch of games.
Oh yeah. So, you know, Milton started last year and, I think, coming in, he was probably a little nervous. He did okay. He got hurt. And then of course Hooker came in and just, really kind of dominated. So, when you really look at that, we've got two guys that really can get it done. And, they both pull for each other. I mean, there was an article up here about how they're, they hang out, they're good buddies and that type thing. But, to your point, what we were talking about yesterday, when I go and look at the depth chart, on offense, we got senior, junior, sophomore, senior, junior, senior, graduate, which is Hooker. So it's fifth year, and then junior. And we got two sophomores. And one of those is Brew McCoy, who was, a 5-star that got eligible last week. That's going to be playing for us. And, he's going to probably be pretty dominant, there. And then on defense, you look at, here are our starters: junior, senior, senior, sophomore, junior. So, when you start looking at that, and then on defense behind them, senior, junior, sophomore, senior, junior, got a freshman, redshirt, junior, sophomore. So, as we talked about yesterday, I think, look, maybe all those guys weren't 5-stars, but the guy that was on before that was just speaking at me, it was very entertaining. He was talking about, when you come in, you're small, you got to grow, you're 17. And some of these seniors, have grown 2 or 3 inches. Some of these guys have put on 30 pounds in the weight room.
Yeah.
And we may be playing against some 5-stars, but some of these 5-stars, when I look at Georgia, they're freshmen and sophomore starting. Look, I don't know about the stars at that point, but you got some guys that are seniors that have been in the weight room and been here for 4 years and have put on the strength and have seen action and have been out there. I would say they're going to go head to head. I don't care if they're a 3-star or 2-star. These guys are going to be good and have experience, and that's why I like what we have right now.
Yeah, and we're going to go to a break here in about a minute. So I look at Tennessee, Mark, and I think about Jimmy referenced it earlier. We were talking about Kentucky. They beat Kentucky at night on the road November 6th. And 14 minutes and 47 seconds time of possession, 48-45. You've got to have an offense nowadays to win the national championship that scores north of 45 points in every game. I think Josh Heupel's Tennessee team is built like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at what he did last year. I mean, he came into a situation that was pretty difficult without a lot of, players that came back and a lot of guys that transferred. And we've talked about 20 or 30 kids leaving and some of our best players. And for him to do what he did, and I'm not saying the team we had was not good. I just think that, he was able to get the best out of everybody. And his system is so good. And I like, what I'm reading up here about busted plays and what can happen.
Yeah.
And Hooker maybe not running as much and throwing the ball. So I expect us to put up, a lot of points. At least I hope we do this year.
Yeah, and look, one thing real quick, and we're going to come back after the break and pick up on it, but put things in perspective. When the Jeremy Pruitt fallout was counted up, 38 players at Tennessee went into the portal. Another 4 were let out of their national letter of intent. So we'll pick up right after this quick break with more.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Mark, again, along the line of the what happened when Jeremy Pruitt left, a lot of guys did leave. What in the world of sports is going on up there with the NCAA? I think Tennessee's, this is my personal take on it. I think the NCAA is so lost in the wilderness now that they'll likely give Tennessee credit for time served. I mean, they had all those guys leave. They fired 9 coaches. The chancellor did. They got rid of Pruitt, and Fulmer's out as AD. A lot of things happened. Tennessee took action to correct the whatever problems that they felt there were. The NCAA told them there were. But are you hearing anything from your sources up there, boots on the ground, that anything else is coming Tennessee's way? Because it doesn't seem like there is, because Tennessee's recruiting very well. And if there were stories out there, they'd be out there with social media and all. kind of the canaries in the coal mine. But I think Tennessee is now and on the way back, and I'll be shocked if anything comes.
Yeah, there was a report that came out a couple of weeks ago that said, they finally finished and, they saw the, allegations and all the stuff they verified and that type thing. But, he was paying players. He was giving money out in McDonald's bags. They were paying for people to travel and that kind of thing. But, let's just be honest. I mean, are we the only school in America that does that? No, I'm not saying that, cheating and under those rules is correct or right. But, I think there's a lot of people out there. A lot of people get paid. They just do it in a different way. I mean, they give mama a job making $300,000 a year in a new car, and NCAA doesn't really track that. So, and with the NIL now going on, I mean, you're not paying players to come to your school, but in a way you are. You're recruiting them, with dollars to a degree. So, I think we did self-imposed. We have not had a full scholarship roster in a couple of years. We've cleaned up everything. We have a fantastic AD and a good administration that's doing anything and everything to work with NCAA to say, look, we went through some tough times, some hard years, but, we figured it out. We have things in place now. We have a lot of compliance in place, and we're going to do it the right way. So I think it's a commitment that starts at the top. And I think it's also the AD and people that really kind of keep their hand on the pulse.
Yeah. What the atmosphere up there, it's a Thursday night game against Ball State. Again, it doesn't matter who you're playing. It's college football. It's Neyland. It's one of the great iconic cathedrals of college football. You can't have a waiting for the other shoe to drop mentality, can you, when you're trying to come back? I mean, a lot of the expectations are 9 or 10 wins, and, who knows what happens. If Tennessee's 9-0, late in the season or 9-1, somehow teams, when they're having those kind of years, find ways to get those other wins. But I'm just curious mentally. I think Tennessee fans, a lot of the ones I talked to, they've been through a lot since Phil Fulmer left.
Yeah, they have. I mean, Philip was a great coach, and obviously he got a national championship. And had a lot of wins. I always thought we kind of underperformed because at one point, when you look at the number of NFL players we had in the NFL back in the 90s, we had more than anyone, but we only had one national championship. And, those are hard to come by, obviously. But, you contrast that with Alabama, who probably has more players, in the NFL, and they've got, 6 national championships. So you got to just continue to pound. You can't win it and stop. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Kirby Smart. Does Kirby have that fire like Saban to win as many as he can, or do you get the monkey off his back and he's relaxing a little bit? And I'm not saying that they are. It's in that some coaches do that, but some are built a little differently. They get a national championship, and that gives you 5 or 6 years of,
wait a minute,
coaching.
Wait, I got to interrupt you here. Ask Gene Chiswick if that gives you 5 or 6 years. Ask Ed Orgeron. They got 2 years.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Maybe not with Ed. Maybe I'll get 1 year now. Maybe back in the day it was 5.
LSU and Auburn, I tell you what, it's like, what have you done for me today?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But I would say, I think, we're going to probably do pretty well this year. I think everyone is expecting that. I think, we'll be in a pretty good shape. But, we just got to win some games. I think we're recruiting well. And it's a process. I mean, you got to give the guy to put his process in place. I hope that the expectations aren't too high, because everything you read is all, about all the hype and all the excitement, which is great. It's good to have that, but you got to produce on the field. And I do think we're deeper this year. I mean, we lost some pretty good receivers. I mean, that's the only thing that concerns me is we lost some guys that are in the NFL now, and you got to replace those. We do have some talent, but again, those guys have got to be able to step up and produce. And I think if they do that, then, we ought to have a pretty good year.
Yeah. Jimmy?
Yeah, I just think that the big issue is in the secondary, and of course the corners in particular, because when you're scoring as many points as Tennessee does, your defense doesn't have to be great, but at the same time, though, you can't have this mental outlook that we can give up 30 and we're going to win easily. You still got to have that focus of trying to be the best that we can be every single week. And, you talk about that Kentucky win last year, man, 48 points, man, that's a lot of points, to score against a pretty good Kentucky team in Lexington, but yet, you give up 45, and anytime you do that, it's kind of a concern. So I know they're really working, hard to not only improve in the secondary, but also build some depth. And I'm thinking that, Heupel feels that his offense is always going to be successful because the blueprint's there. You just got to get the players to come in and execute it. But, certain coaches like that have an offensive system that they know is proven over time and it's going to work, they're, in my mind, always going to be able to get really good skill position players, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and you'll be good there. But I think so many programs now are challenged on the defensive end because the rules are dictated to favor the offense. And so many of these schemes require that the defense be aware that they've got to cover all 53 1/3 yards of the field from a sideline to sideline standpoint. So the game has changed tremendously. And then on the other side of it, and I know I mention it a lot, and the one thing that you just can't predict is injuries. And that's why depth is just so important. And that's why it's really critical for these guys during the week that aren't starters to realize that, hey, I'm one play away from having to come in a ball game, and it might be against a really big time opponent. And, I got to be ready to go and be totally prepared if all of a sudden, hey, the guy that plays in front of me is injured, and I got to go out there right away and be ready to go.
Mark?
No, I totally agree with Jimmy. I mean, how could I not disagree with these experts on here? I mean, come on, you guys know more football than I do. So, and I absolutely agree with him. I mean, we lost some DBs, and you're right. Those corners have got to, be able to, withstand, the onslaught. If we're putting up a bunch of points, and you got a lot of people are throwing the ball now. So, while it's fun to see a 55-50 game, sometimes you get to the point like, God, can we stop anybody? And you've got to be able to get those stops, and you're right. And last year we didn't really have a lot or the ability on the defensive line to really get any pressure on the quarterback. Matt Corral killed us. He stood in the pocket forever, and then he would run and get the first down. If we could have just had a couple stops there, we could have beat Ole Miss here, but we couldn't stop him. We just didn't have the players and the depth. So, I do like the fact we got a lot of guys that have a lot of experience, but you're right. I think if you look at Alabama and you look at Georgia, you look at those defensive lines, the people they have, man, I'll tell you, they can push that line back and get pressure on the quarterback, and he didn't have time to, make those reads. It does change the game, and I think you've got to have that. And I agree with Jimmy. You've got to get some horses in here that can move that line of scrimmage backwards and blow the line up and try to get to the quarterback if they're going to be throwing the ball.
Well, I think the key for Ole Miss in that 31-26 victory October 16th at Neyland Stadium last year was Ole Miss's players got more rest during the game, if you know what I mean.
They had a lot of fluids. I mean, I was there. It was probably a brisk, 45, 50 degree night. But man, I tell you, they were going down like it was, August 1st with cramps. I've never seen somebody cramp so much at 45 degree weather.
Yeah.
But every other play, they were, as we call it, the fainting goats on the field. So, but yeah, it was really, really frustrating to watch that. And the fact that it was Kiffin as well. So he wonders why everyone threw everything at him, that they had in the stands. But even though I don't condone it, it was kind of fun to watch, quite frankly.
Hey, I got to say, though, Tennessee, I thought they learned pretty well on the fly, though, because after Ole Miss did it about the first 20 times, they thought they would, take their turn at trying to see if they could, if they were as good as Ole Miss at interrupting an offensive possession. And it was really interesting how often Ole Miss did it because Ole Miss themselves was the team that ran over 100 plays in the game, whereas I think Tennessee ran 68 or 69.
Jimmy, Matt, Mark, Jimmy and I have brought this up. We have Steve Shaw on the show a good bit, coordinator of NCAA officials, and he says they're working really hard to fix that. But now Jimmy's come up with the yellow card, red card, like in soccer. And another thing we've talked about is if a player goes down like that, he's out for the rest of that series, or maybe you could say you're out for the next, the rest of that quarter. That would stop it. If there's no consequences for bad behavior, people will act out, and bad behavior will become the norm.
Well, Rob, if you just said that defensive player that all of a sudden had that injury when he was nowhere near the play, well, we're going to be cautious on the side of safety. So you're just going to sit out for the remainder of that series, and if that series happened to start at the 30-yard line, and that was like play 2 of that possession, you may have to sit out 10 plays that results in a touchdown. Well, you get what you deserve, and that'll put a stop to that. But my yellow card, red card idea referred to targeting penalties.
I agree with that.
Especially the marginal ones. That it didn't even look like one. I mean, that is really a harsh penalty. The only ones are the ones that pass the eye test that I think deserve the immediate ejection, when it's clearly helmet to helmet, you draw a bead on the guy, and then the clinchers when you stand over him or taunt him. That means, okay, hey, I don't mind if that guy gets misses a couple more when you do that.
Yeah. Mark, I mean,
I'll tell you though, I was going to say, to follow up, you're talking about soccer, what we really need to do is for these guys to act like the soccer players. If you go down and you're hurt, act like your leg is broken completely, and then you have a compound fracture like the soccer guys do, and then they come out and spray a little spray on it, and then they jump up and run off the field. It's like the biggest acting. It's almost like wrestling, out there. But if you're gonna be hurt, act like you're hurt. Don't just kind of meander off the field. Act like you're hurt.
Well, ESPN has picked up on it with that commercial on Sports Center. Walking around, I'm cramp. But that you've got to do. This is done by schools to slow down the fast-paced, hurry-up, no-huddle offenses. And Brett Bielema was a big-time offender. I mean, when you see the coaches on the sidelines pointing to the guy who is, running off the field, and all of a sudden he just falls down and does the dying cockroach on his back, after he got hit with some black flag. That is what it is. And it's a disgrace to the integrity of the game. But what it is also, it's an admission on the part of those other Cro-Magnon coaches that they can't keep up with modern era football, and they're just lazy in it. And if they don't stop it, it's going to stop, because it's going to hurt fan interest, because people will say, there's no integrity. You can't do it. But the targeting, you're right. They go. All right, Mark, let's think about this real quick. I've got a few more minutes before you got to get going. Tennessee tomorrow night, Ball State. What are you looking for? What are the takeaways you're looking for on this team? Offense, defense, special teams, whatever. Are you going to be looking for something in particular out of the defense?
Yeah, I think so. I think, what I noticed again last year is something I said earlier, is that we just didn't have enough, horses up front. We were thin on the defensive line, and we didn't have enough guys that, really put on any pressure on the quarterback really in any game. I mean, it was just difficult. So I really want to see how we do there. And then to Jimmy's point, I want to see how our secondary reacts, because there are some guys, they're older in the tooth. They, don't have as much experience. But I want to see a defensive push on the front line, because again, that's where you win a lot of those battles in the SEC, as you well know. Even though it's not necessarily a running game anymore, it's a lot of throwing, you still got to get pressure on the quarterback. And we just weren't able to do that last year. And I'm hoping that this year with the depth we have, that we see a difference, because if not, our defense is going to be, that was our Achilles heel last year. We were able to put more points than most people. But when you have a defensive line that can't get any pressure on anybody, it's difficult to win as well, because they're going to put up points. So.
Yeah. Well, the main thing is when you've got a fast-paced offense, your defense, if you don't have depth, it's really going to hurt you. And that's why you just run out of gas in the fourth quarter. And that's why I'm asking you is tomorrow night, the opponent Ball State is not an SEC team. We all know that, but you got to think that you're going to see some signs of progress when you're out there. I remember last year, Tennessee's opening game, it was like they came out, those first two drives were scripted. They jump up 14-0 against Bowling Green. And, it was more of a fight than they wanted, but it just goes to show you that that other team has scholarship players. They're Division I players. They want to get out there and beat you as well. And I think that fans are the Tennessee fan base. You talked about 17,000 new season ticket holders for this year. I mean, they are ready to explode. And we're going to look, if you can hold with us through the break for one more question. I want to talk about that Tennessee fan base and what's the game for them to win this year, for them to say, hey, we're back on the right track after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Mark, we're going to put you on the spot. Last question before you go. Tennessee this year has a game in Athens between the hedges. They've got Alabama in Knoxville, and they will be this year on the road in the Swamp to play Florida. Which of those three wins do you think they're most likely to get? But is it going to take a win against one of those three? You'd like to get them all three, but at least one of those for Tennessee fans to say we really are on the way back.
Yeah, I think so. And I know you're correct, probably 1,000% of the time, but we have Florida at home this year. Oh. I know you're trying to keep up with 12 other teams. That's okay. We got Florida at home. So
yeah, never mind. It's the odd year. It's odd years in Gainesville.
Yeah, odd year.
I was thinking the reason why I thought about that, my son, his freshman year at Auburn, went down with his friend James Turley from Tennessee, who was a freshman in Knoxville, to the game when Tennessee lost that just gut-wrenching game. And there was a picture on TV of Wilson and James Turley with the look of like a deer about to be hit by an 18-wheeler. But my apologies.
No. You're always right. But I would say the other reason when you brought it up, I thought, can we get Florida?
We must correct one another. No misspellings.
They got a new coach. They got, a new system, kind of like we were last year. So, I don't know what to think. But, I think if we hadn't thrown that pick six, early in the game, we were going down the score, and it was a 14, point turnaround. They took it back to the house. I think we could have even hung with them last year. So I think if we can beat Florida, I think, they're probably out of the three going to be the one I think we can confidently say, hey, we're going to compete with them. We probably can win. But the flip side of it is, I got a daughter at Georgia, and my son and I are going down. And I already told her we're winning that game in Athens, so they might as well just get ready for a loss down there. Because when I look at their roster, they got a lot of freshmen and sophomores on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and it's going to be big. So yeah, one of those three though in the Vol Nation will be going crazy, and I think
if we can compete with Alabama, I think that'll be fun. But Alabama, I think, is going to be the national champion. I mean, again, this is their. I was looking at it the other day to see how many times they win. They win every 2 to 3 years. So with Bryce Young and the defense back, I think they're going to be the team to beat. But if we can put up some points against them and play with them, that's great. But I mean, come on, they're in a whole different league. But I would like for us to compete, and we competed pretty well with them last year. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think we win that game at home. It'll be a lot of fun, and hopefully both you and Jimmy will be here. The tailgate, we'll win the tailgate, but I don't know if we'll beat Bama.
No, you sound like Ole Miss. We may not win every game, but we've never lost the tailgate. Is that no?
That's right.
They've got the copyright on that. Mark, great stuff as always. Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. And look, during the show tomorrow, text us, put some comments if you want to out here, and we'll relay them. Just kind of that atmosphere. We're all just so starved for the beginning of college football season, but we love it. And great report. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, the last thing I'll tell you is my son, as you know, you talked to him, is doing sports management. He's working with the athletic department. He got to go over and do the meeting yesterday, and he said he was right outside Coach Heupel's office because they're working with his executive assistant. So he's pretty fired up. He's going to be driving the coaches' families around, and they said he'll get to do a lot more next year. But he's really excited about the season, and everyone's fired up.
Hey, man, everybody look back to when you get your start. He is going to have a lot of fun. Another thing is, he's going to be busy, really busy on game day. It may be an 18-hour day, but welcome to our world, huh?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, hey, man, just enjoy it. He's got his Fridays off from class. He didn't have class, so he's going to go volunteer, as you told him. So he should be pretty connected over there, and I'm hoping he's going to enjoy it, because I told him if he didn't want to do it, I'll volunteer to do that.
Yeah. There you go. All right, man. Go Big Orange. And then, by the way, find out if Smokey flies, drives, whatever, to the road games. I
got an inside track now. I got the inside track. I'll call my son to find out. He'll know now.
All right, we'll do it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
You bet, man. Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. Mark Hamm up in Knoxville. Let's head down Florida-Georgia line down in Valdosta. Our good friend Shoney the Knife, Shoney the Snake, feeding us those betting lines, man. I tell you, I'm seeing them now. There's some big ones that, you know what? There are a lot like Mark Slayball always says on this show. There are a lot of tall buildings in Las Vegas for a reason, because most people lose, and it's very hard for everybody to be right at the same time. One such person, though, is our good friend Shoney. Shoney, got to ask you, what are some of the games that really pique your interest this week on the college football schedule? Starting tomorrow night, Tennessee Ball State. That should be a public beheading for Tennessee to win that one big. But I'm particularly interested in your thoughts on the Florida at home against Utah, Georgia, Oregon in Atlanta, and the backyard brawl tomorrow night, Pittsburgh and West Virginia, after an 11-year layoff.
I'm a little more interested than some in that Pittsburgh, West Virginia deal. I had the pleasure to meet Neil Browne when he was in Troy.
Okay.
So with JT Daniels showing up at West Virginia with Neil Browne, it personally intrigues me a little bit. So I'll pay a little bit more attention to that one than I'm going to watching that public beheading over in Knoxville.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jimmy, and I'm with Jimmy. I've got Utah to win in the Swamp Saturday. It's going to be fever pitch excitement, but I just think 18 years Kyle Whittingham has built Utah into a national legit program. They're big time favorite to win the Pac-12. It doesn't matter where you play. You still got to play it on the field. Now, I want the Gators to win because I want the SEC to win. But what's your take?
we all know that the games are not played on the field; they're played inside television sets. But,
that's right.
But I'll be real interested to watch that Utah and Florida. And I'm kind of with you, Rob. I think Utah wins the game. If Utah does not win the game, everybody else better look out for Florida.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. All right, third one, the big Saturday, defending national champion Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium there in Atlanta against Oregon. Oregon will go anywhere to play anybody, anytime. You know they'll bring some fans there. Georgia lost a lot, but is there just too much Georgia and not enough Oregon, even after all 15 guys were drafted?
The 15 guys being drafted doesn't really concern me because I saw a mock draft yesterday, and 3 of the first 10 were Georgia players for the NFL next year.
Yeah,
I think Georgia's kind of got the thrashing machine going again.
Yeah,
they're on a par with Alabama almost in my book.
Well, when you look at the talent that they're recruiting, I mean, it's Georgia and Alabama 1 and 2 in recruiting. Now we know A&M had it all this past year, but guys coming back, there are a lot of sophomores that'll play, some freshmen, but I think again just too much Georgia in that game. Jimmy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Georgia just has all the intangibles in their favor. Oregon is starting over with a new coaching staff. You got different schemes on both sides of the ball. But I do think defensively, Oregon's got some really good talent there. They could, have the opportunity maybe to stall Georgia early on if some of the new starters in the Georgia lineup have the normal pregame jitters, and it might take them a series or two to just realize that it's another football game, even though it's a high-profile game. So I'm really interested to see what Bo Nix does against this Georgia defense, which he has had not much success against in his career.
No, nightmares come to mind, Jimmy.
And again, working with a new coaching staff and a new offensive scheme. Well, it may not be drastically different, although Heupel does prefer the pro style passing game. But at the same time, though, he does like to have a dual threat quarterback, where with Nix, I think his game would be really suited for what Oregon has run in past years. And the fact that he is the starter, which surprised me, tells me that Lanning is going to most likely offensively kind of stick with what Oregon's been doing for, more than a decade, dating back to the Chip Kelly years, and that is a spread running game and trying to utilize their speed. And we'll just see what a lot of the new Georgia starters are able to do coming right out of the gate with not having a lot of experience, but plenty of skill and talent. It's really a classic contrast of situations and styles.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to the Big Easy, and it won't be easy to pick this one. Florida State goes over to play Sunday night in the Superdome against LSU. Shoney, Mike Norvell, this is year 3. I mean, how did Florida State – Jimbo Fisher left because he felt there was a lack of commitment to facilities and all. But Florida State, an iconic program, 3 national championships the last 30 years, a lot of wins, but they're struggling. I mean, they're kind of like somebody out there in a damn flooded rice field during duck season at 6 o'clock in the morning in a 2-wheel drive that their wife let them borrow. Not only have they covered it completely in mud, but they're stuck, and they've made the farmer mad, and it's going to cost them $500 to get pulled out with his tractor. They just can't get it together. Johnny Ballpark Franks is on here with us a lot, Florida State alum, and hell, I got a lot of Florida State T-shirts, and I'm an Auburn grad. I want to beat them. I love that rivalry, but they're playing LSU in the Superdome in game 1 of the Brian Kelly era. LSU's tough to beat down there. Convince us why or why Florida State will not win against the Tigers.
Brian Kelly has won 40 games in a row, which he was favored. And I think, if nothing else, Coach Kelly will win that game.
Is it fair?
I think LSU's still in the development stage of this moment.
Okay, the trend is your friend. Brian Kelly has won 40 straight games where he's a favorite. That's impressive, man. Very, again, there's going to be a lot of talent on that field. Why will LSU not win that game? Your reasons.
I'm convinced LSU will win that game.
But convince me. But why do you think? Convince us why Florida State could win the game.
I don't think they can win the game.
So you're not even going to try.
I'm not even going to try, Rob, honestly.
They've already sold their allotment of 30,000 tickets. So it's going to be a crazy atmosphere. Superdome holds about 75,000. So if Florida State has sold their 30,000, they're going to be more. This may be a 60-40 crowd. It's going to be wild. LSU has something magic about the Superdome when they play there. But all right, Shoney, I got to ask you. So switch gears real quick. You're at the tip of the spear down there in Valdosta, the Florida Georgia line, we like to call you. Of course, there's a famous group called Florida Georgia Line, but you're Florida Georgia Line on the college and the high school. What's the state of the South Georgia high school football when you compare it to Metro Atlanta? Where are the state championships in Georgia? I know last year Columbus has got some pretty good football too. Look, there's so many places, but historically it's always been South Georgia. Are they losing any of that grip?
I don't know if they're losing it, but Atlanta's gaining it.
Yeah.
I mean, your thing about two Georgias is really being much more obvious every year.
Yeah.
With the Gwinnett counties of the world and the Graces of the world, all the up-and-coming football programs that historically just has a good athletes but not very good teams in the Atlanta area.
Yeah. Well, you saw what Buford did opening weekend, August 20th. It was what they did to Thompson, Alabaster,
yes.
Thompson High School over in Alabaster. They won 3 straight state championships. They're kind of the new Hoover in Alabama. And Buford beat Thompson 38-7. So that's, and there's a lot of guys like Derek Browne and his brother, Cameron, Derek Browne, number 7 pick in the draft, who played at Auburn all 4 years, I might add. All right, Shoney, look, running out of time, man. I can't believe this. That stopwatch gets going. We got behind. We're gonna get you on more often talking about these lines, but I'm just fascinated by some of the lines. But I'm curious. We'll talk about it again tomorrow. The one that really interests me is Utah 2.5-point favorite at Florida. I'm curious if that'll change, but bottom line, we got a lot to talk about. We'll be back on tomorrow. Got a full show. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. Gary Harris, Tide 100.9. Yan Cowart will join us about sports architecture, building all these massive facilities all around at Auburn, Tuscaloosa. How do they do it? Where does the money come from? And why is everything going through the roof cost-wise? We'll talk about it, and we'll look at more of these games. Again, Tennessee and Ball State tomorrow night. We'll kick it off, but we're here with you every Monday through Saturday, www.sidelines.live, and of course, Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, and Central Alabama. Jimmy, it was a great show. We had Ben Troupe on there, Mitch Davis, Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, and I'm going to say this. All these Southern Cal has supplied a bunch of schools with quarterbacks, and now they're going to have Caleb Thompson from Oklahoma. The move of Lincoln Riley And the move of Brian Kelly from Notre Dame to LSU just set off an explosion of quarterback transfers all over the country. So there's a lot to talk about. We'll be back with you again tomorrow. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed country in the world. Folks, if you don't think that, go to a college football game or a high school football game and see it. This is what it's all about. But I tell you right now, 33 hours away from kickoff up in Knoxville. Get ready. College football season is here. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. Have a great day. We're out of here.